My guest is an extraordinary Miamian, Dr. Jacques Fresco. Does it bug you that people, when they talk about Jacques Fresco in Miami, say that he's someone who's too far ahead of his time? His thinking is, we're not ready for advanced kind of thinking, of that type. Does it bug you?
I imagine every creative person in every field encounters that sort of problem. No, it doesn't. I can't afford it. There's too many things that are important.
Let's explore the thinking of Jacques Fresco and the society he'd like to see. Now, we'll start with this, and you tell me.
I'll try to point that.
Yeah, you can point right at it.
All of the new cities will be a university, in essence. The center of the city, the nucleus, will house an electronic computer, which only controls the weather, water purification, the atmospheric conditions, that is, it controls air contamination systems. The computers do not, I say it again, do not control people. They maintain safety, they oversee the environment, maintain ecological balance between animal life and plant life. All the machines do is control the physical entities that comprise the environment. The center of the city is a university that covers all subjects related to man. It is not a commercial university. It is not based on there's no courses that are used to exploit or abuse any other human being. All business courses will be phased out. All repetitious jobs will be phased out. We feel that machines ought to do the filthy or the repetitious or the boring jobs. That man has to be free to pursue the higher possibilities of man and to find the meaning of their own existence and lives. The cities are all immersed in beautiful gardens. There are no trees in a row. It is not a mechanical environment. It is essentially a city immersed in a second Garden of Eden. Each of the garden cities contain lakes, recreation areas, art centers, music centers, cultural centers. This is an ecological program. And between cities, we let everything go back to nature. The entire ecological balance is maintained. On the outer rim of the city, we have the agricultural belt, where we grow foods hydroponically. There are no garbage trucks. There are no dump fields. We use everything. All waste is recycled. All of your garbage is compressed and recycled out to the agricultural belt. There's circular conveyor belts that take you anywhere in the city in 3 minutes. All the machines do is control the physical entities that comprise the environment. We just can't afford to go on and make an individual house for every human being. Our population has already surpassed the point of no return. We have to unify our architecture, not that I like it, but we're trapped.
I remember 5 years ago I used to laugh at you, and now all this is very believable.
People are not reasonable. You have to manipulate the variables to get them to understand the Venus Project. But then get them to understand that the Venus Project doesn't solve all problems. It's just a hell of a lot better than what we've got. That's all you've got to understand. We don't seek perfection or utopia or anything like that. We just seek, we know the world can be far better, that there's no need for most crimes. And it's cheaper, by the way, to make things available to people than put them in jail. It costs $50,000 a year to keep a kid in jail. How stupid can you be? $75,000 for an adult, and they don't come out any better. I think you know that. So this way, if you took the price of 10 kids in jail, we can make everything available to people. Art materials, music, violins, give it to them. It's cheaper than putting them in jail. Make things available to people. And your kids in the distant future will say to you, if you're still around, couldn't you see that? Wasn't that obvious? You say, no, we were steeped in it. When you're brought up in a bucket of shit up there, you know of no other world. It's just that you don't duck much. That's all. But the world you live in is so loused up, and the people you talk to, that's why I know if I get on television, I can turn millions of people around, because I don't come at them offensively. And I know they're looking for answers, but they don't know an answer if they heard it today. So you guys have to do some work when you leave here. That's why I'm trying to compress all I can and give you all I can within the time we're together. Okay? So I'm going to send you on your way because we got a lot of work to do. Okay?
This is a time that requires incredible courage on our part. We all, at this point, have to stop thinking about me, about ourselves, and about, am I going to save $2 on this shirt and help create slavery in Indonesia at sweatshops? Am I willing to give up bottled water and drink water out of the tap, even though I think it may not possibly be quite as healthy? Am I willing to eat foods that have preservatives in them, but that are grown fairly locally and kept over the winter, as opposed to buying organic food that's shipped in from Australia and therefore uses a lot of oil? Am I willing to make these sacrifices so that my children and grandchildren will have a place to live on this planet that they recognize? Because it's going to require courage for us to reach a place where we can say, it's not fair that less than 5% of the world's population, us in the United States, are consuming over 25% of its resources. It's not fair that we're taking the water from Fiji and bottling it here. That's no good for the world in the future. And that takes courage. We also all have to have the courage to put our lives at risk. You know, I often look back at the American Revolution and think about what courage George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine and their wives and children had, because every one of those people was a terrorist, a traitor. They were up against the strongest empire in the history of the world at the time, the British Empire, and they stuck their heads in nooses. If they had lost the revolution, they would have been hanged, and they had the courage to do that. And we must have that courage today. We must have the courage to stand up to a system that we know we can deeply improve upon, and that it may require what we might call sacrifices. It may even require us risking our lives. I know in a way I took a risk by writing a book. I stuck my head in the noose by going up against the establishment. We all must be willing to do that, because there's something that's so much more important than the water I drink today or the clothes I wear today, and that's the future for our children and our grandchildren and this very planet. So being fearless at this point requires tremendous courage and the recognition that there's something much greater than my immediate needs and my immediate life, and that looks at the whole integrated planet and its future. I'm John Perkins, and I'm very devoted to creating change in the world. I think it's extremely important that we recognize that we've entered a time that's been prophesized by many, many cultures around the world, where we have the potential to create tremendous change, in essence to rise to new levels of consciousness. But part of the essence of that is to understand that we're a very small world. We're one community. So my daughter, who's 23, cannot grow up in a stable, sustainable, peaceful world unless we expect all the children growing up today in Nigeria and Ethiopia and the Philippines and Indonesia and Brazil and Bolivia to also grow up in a stable, sustainable, and peaceful world. We know now that we're a very small community and that we must work together. We also know that we have the resources required to make that happen. So what we need is a true change of consciousness, where we understand the interrelationship between all of us, and we understand that everything we buy impacts people around the world. Everything we consume impacts people around the world. And so we've entered this prophesized time, which is called a time of tremendous transition, of the opportunity for transition. But it's up to us to take advantage of that opportunity. It's up to each one of us to make sure that we feel this interrelatedness of this planet that we're on, and of all the people and animals and plants on this planet. And we work hard to create a world that will make our children on every continent, in every country, in all the most remote corners of this planet, proud that we do what we do today. I'm John Perkins, and I'm very devoted to creating change in the world. I think it's extremely important that we recognize that we've entered a time that's been prophesized by many, many cultures around the world, where we have the potential to create tremendous change, in essence to rise to new levels of consciousness. But part of the essence of that is to understand that we're a very small world. We're one community. So my daughter, who's 23, cannot grow up in a stable, sustainable, peaceful world unless we expect all the children growing up today in Nigeria and Ethiopia and the Philippines and Indonesia and Brazil and Bolivia to also grow up in a stable, sustainable, and peaceful world. We know now that we're a very small community and that we must work together. We also know that we have the resources required to make that happen. So what we need is a true change of consciousness, where we understand the interrelationship between all of us, and we understand that everything we buy impacts people around the world. Everything we consume impacts people around the world. And so we've entered this prophesized time, which is called a time of tremendous transition, of the opportunity for transition. But it's up to us to take advantage of that opportunity. It's up to each one of us to make sure that we feel this interrelatedness of this planet that we're on, and of all the people and animals and plants on this planet. And we work hard to create a world that will make our children on every continent, in every country, in all the most remote corners of this planet, proud that we do what we do today.
One way or another, we will end up in a system that's not based on money as we know it today. Why? Because that will be realized in the future by historians as the total and pivotal cause of the destruction of civilization as we know it. That will be understood in the future. Historians will look back and say, holy shit, they were making materials, selling them for corporation profit over and over and over and over again with absolutely no reference to what the planet had and recycling protocols and everything else. They were burning fossil fuels at 1,000,000 times the rate of their actual renewability. They're going to laugh at us, wondering what the hell kind of primitive, dumbass species we actually were, if we even survived to reach that point. So I hate to sound condescending and negative. I hate to throw out all this rhetoric, but I'm fairly irritated at this point, and I try not to be. I just want to make it understood that the entire system that we live in is a sham. It's a false system, falsivity defined by the fact that it cannot be sustained. It's that simple, and we propose a resource-based economy. I hope everyone watching this film will go to www.thezeitgeistmovement.com and understand what we're doing. I hope everyone out there will understand that either we change or we die.